Tonight, civil society groups accuse the government of massaging figures on Ghana's annual gold revenue in an attempt to justify the controversial Japa deal.
Ghana received 1.06 billion cedis, equivalent to $200 million, from the big companies under the Chamber of Mines alone. Government has data on the other receipts, yet it decided to underreport the numbers.
Well, the CSOs have also been taking on the 7th Parliament, describing it as weak. They say the House did a poor job on the Japa deal.
No, I think Parliament has gotten weaker in terms of governance, good governance over the time. And I haven't seen a Parliament that is more secretive than this current one.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, gas and cement, the nation building. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Now, civil society groups are tonight accusing government of massaging figures on Ghana's annual gold revenues in an attempt to justify the Japa deal. At a media briefing today, they accuse government of underreporting the country's annual earnings from gold and redacting information on the deal communicated to the CSOs. They insist the deal must be suspended without delay, and they now have more questions about this particular deal after meeting the finance minister. You'll recall last week the CSOs, numbering about 21, met the finance minister in a marathon session that ended with reports suggesting the government was now ready to consult even more broadly. It turns out the CSOs say government communicated to them in the meeting that they intend to go ahead with this particular deal. Now, the 22 CSOs have also been taking on the 7th Parliament for doing a poor job on the deal. They describe it as the weakest parliament in Ghana's history. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is in the studio with me, parliamentary correspondent himself, and also the press conference. What is the issue with the alleged allegations of government massaging figures?
So it's all happening on two separate fronts. So first of all, they claim that when the CSOs met with government, a presentation was done to them, PowerPoint slides, which eventually, when they requested that they would want to have that, there was a situation where a lot of information, which are sensitive information that they really wanted to have, had actually been taken out of the slides that were sent to them. But more importantly, when they talk about under-reporting of figures, they say at the meeting they asked the Deputy Finance Minister a direct question on how much Ghana makes when it comes to annual gold revenue. So, annual gold royalties. So not the entire revenue, but the royalties, which constitutes about 20% of the entire gold revenue. On that royalties, they got the indication that Ghana is earning somewhere in the region of $150 million annually. But when they checked, the CSOs came to the realization that it's actually around $200 million. Steve Mantiao, who is actually leading the coalition, addressed the media earlier today.
We have so far been constrained in our analysis of this transaction by our inability to assess the full complement of data and assumptions used in the government's valuation of the royalties being traded. At our last meeting with the ministry, some slides containing some data were presented. However, when we requested for copies of those particular slides of interest to us were omitted, either deliberately or inadvertently. The interesting thing for citizens to appreciate is that through government communication, it is evident that it is either not paying attention to the revenue flows in the sector or deliberately undervaluing the assets for unknown reasons. When a direct question was posed to the Deputy Minister of Finance on the amount of royalties received from gold in 2019, he said Ghana received about 650 million cedis, equivalent of $123 million. The truth is that Ghana received 1.06 billion cedis, equivalent to $200 million, from the big companies under the Chamber of Mines alone. Government has data on the other receipts, yes, yet it decided to underreport the numbers. Again, in our meeting with the Ministry of Finance, we were given half-year receipts for 2019 of $72 million US, equivalent to 366 million Ghana cedis. The underreporting of the 2019 revenue, which is the most significant period for revenue projection, and emphasis on old royalty numbers is very intriguing.
Okay,
so
some
just make the point
there.
there. So just make the point there. So the claim from the CSOs is actually that in terms of the revenue coming from the gold royalties, the money is coming from the gold royalties, it's $123 million that government communicated to them. Earlier we said 150, so they say it's 123 million, but from their checks, it's actually $200 million, and that's actually that which is coming from the big mining firms that's working with the Chamber of Mines, and that there's possibly been others that haven't been added to the 200 million figure that they are estimating, indicating a huge underreporting, the CSO's claim.
Okay, I mean, we'll try and interrogate why this is important to this whole particular deal, why they getting it accurate when it comes to how much you're getting from the royalties. It's important to accurately evaluating the goals that, of course, the royalties that we're about to mortgage. Let's talk about something else the CSOs indicated today. The complicity of Parliament in this whole deal came up very strongly as well.
It did. We'll get to that now, but they had 5 specific outstanding questions that they say they still not received adequate responses to from their previous communication as far as government is concerned. So, for example, they're still asking the question about how government did the valuation of Ejapa to the tune of the $1 billion. They're asking a second question, what other investment options were considered before government actually settled on the 49% in terms of the sale of Ejapa when it's actually out there already. They're also asking government why it's deciding to patronize a tax haven when internationally countries are pushing against companies hiding their monies in tax havens. You know, these questions have come up before, but they say from all the interactions, they are still not getting responses to this.
I mean, I'm very curious about that. I mean, they met my finance minister for a long time. They definitely would have asked questions. Is it that in spite of the marathon session, these questions they posed, they still didn't get answers to? The finance minister had been last week on Newsfile and other stations explaining some of these issues. We'll speak to the civil society groups on this in a short while here on Top Story. You are a parliamentary correspondent. Parliament came up for scrutiny.
Ben Boache, who is with the African Center for Energy Policy, has been drawing attention to how government actually rushed this particular deal, including listing of some of its rules, including allowing that when a document is laid, it only has to be debated after 48 hours. We know that usually that's lifted if government wants to rush various deals. And for him, the oversight responsibility of Parliament, it's showing over the years that it's becoming a weaker and weaker institution, and Bembaji thinks he didn't do a very good job with the Ejapa deal.
When a bill or a law comes before Parliament, the Committee of Parliament is assigned the right or the role to go and interrogate and look at the bill and present a report to plenary. When that report comes to plenary, the rule of Parliament is that it shall not be debated until 48 hours has lapsed. The common sense on that arrangement is to allow my MP, who was not on the committee, to at least get a sense of what the committee has done, peruse it, and raise questions on my behalf. What they do is that when the report gets to the plenary, they suspend the Order 81 and pass it there and then. So you have 275 MPs, 25 goes to sit, under the sponsorship of the executive, right? And then they bring the report, and then nobody else has the power or the opportunity to go and review the report that the committee has done, and we call that good governance. That cannot be good governance.
So what's the expectation of Parliament in the light of all the issues that have come up? At the level of leadership, Speaker Michael Kwe, who virtually oversaw all of these processes. What's your expectation in the light of all these?
No, I think Parliament has gotten weaker in terms of governance, good governance over the time. And I haven't seen a Parliament that is more secretive than this current one, because you hardly get memos, you can hardly get a letter sent to you And that is an indictment on how Parliament has functioned in recent times. And I think we need to really look at that and allow the orders of Parliament to work and allow people to participate in good governance. And yeah.
Is there anything they can do about this Japan deal itself?
The Japan deal is not going anywhere. It's still a government, as we are told, it's still a Ghana government company. We are hoping to sell. We can decide not to sell, right? And that's what we are saying. Decide not to sell now, let's have a conversation on that. And it's everything within the power of Ghana to deliver that. Parliament can call the minister to say that based on the conversation that is ongoing, halt the process, let's have a look at it. And I think it's within the power of the President of Parliament to halt the process at this point.
On the telephone line with me right now is the Member of Parliament for Second D. He is Mr. Evans Mensah. He also speaks for the government. You've heard him speak on this issue before. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Top Story.
My pleasure, Evans.
Grateful. Also joining me is Benjamin Boachi, heads the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Let me start with you, Mr. Evans Mensah. Let's start with the revelations today by the civil society that it appears that government has underreported the royalty numbers that was used as the basis for valuing the asset which you, as a member of parliament, approved on the floor at $1 billion.
Well, let me say good evening to Ben, and of course your good self and cherished listeners. It's unfortunate when allegations of this nature are made, okay, without necessarily backing them up with facts. Because if I hear what the civil society organizations are saying, they're essentially accusing government of a serious offense, that the government of the Republic of Ghana has sought to deceive the representatives of the people by presenting a figure to the Parliament of Ghana which amounts to an underreporting. And so if you make such allegations, it's important that you back it up so people can then make a determination whether indeed the assertion you are making is factual or otherwise. Because I've heard the Deputy Finance Minister explain that yes, the total royalties that we get, particularly in the years on the reference that relates to the transaction or that forms the basis for the cash flows that have been prepared, is different, obviously, from the one that we generate from the 16 mining leases that we are assigning. And so, obviously, if you put together the total mineral royalties, and you are talking in the region of the 200 million or 1 billion Ghana cedi that we are making reference to, that obviously cannot be the same as the royalties that relate to the particular leases on the reference, which is what the government has indicated is less than 1 billion that we are talking about.
I mean, the question.
The accusation of underreporting.
Question. So those companies under the specific arrangement which you approve, which you're referring to, are they members of the Chamber of Mines?
They should be.
Okay. Now, if that is the case, I have in front of me a document published by the Ghana Chamber of Mines. It's called the Publish What You Pay 2019, which is the very latest figure on how much they give to government when it comes to mineral royalties. And they quote it to be 1.06 billion, which is what
from the 16 or from the entire royalties that government earns from mining activities. Because if you don't make that distinction between the total amount that government earns from royalties, separate from the income that government makes from the specific leases on the reference, you'll be making a mistake. So if the figure that you are making reference to relates to the 16 mining leases, let's have a conversation. Indeed, it cannot even be 16 because 4 of the 16 leases are actually under development. So we're talking 12. But obviously, there are more than 12 mining leases that government earns a royalty from.
I have with me Benjamin Boache. Mr. Benjamin Boache, how do you react to that? That your calculation is based on what you expect from all mining companies that operate in Ghana and under the Chamber of Mines, but he's talking about the valuation was done based on the specific companies that we all know the Japan deal sort of encompasses. That specifically is what had been used to make the calculation. He says if you use the global figure, you may be wrong.
Evans, thanks for having me in regards to Honorable Mensah on the other side. I think we are specific on the numbers here. And Evans, you remember on your show, this conversation emerged as to what numbers government has been working with. And essentially what has been assigned to Japan are the companies under the Chamber of Mines. So if they report 1 billion to have come from royalties, it is essentially the 12 companies that have been assigned to Japan. So government even has a bigger picture of what royalty receipts are for the total industry, gold industry in Ghana. So when a specific question is put as to how much royalty you receive in a specific year, and you're not able to give us those numbers, we have every right to query that. It had been asked on your show. Before the ministry also, we requested that the full year numbers are presented to us, because at that meeting, only half year was reported to us. And we queried that why would the Ministry of Finance, which receives the royalty, be giving us mid-year numbers for 2019 when we are 9 months, beyond the year. So we thought Ministry of Finance had the numbers and did not give us the numbers. So we requested for it, only to see that the slides that were sent to us, that slide had been deleted from it. So it then brings back the conversation. What is actually going into the valuation of the asset, the royalty assets of the country? Because if we cannot agree on what the royalty receipt for 2019 is, or we cannot be presented with the numbers that we actually got from royalties in 2019, then it questions the overall valuation that has actually been done, and why somebody doesn't want to give us those accurate numbers on it.
I mean, some clarity. The mining firms under the Japan deal, are they all members of the Chamber of Mines, or they are mining firms that come under the Japan deal that we have an excess of sometimes when you go to the Chamber of Mines? What I mean is, if you look at what Mr. Japan Mensah is saying, his point is what you're looking at is specifically to the number of 1.06 billion. It is what you get from the entire mineral royalties from all the companies that we have operating. But they are a finite number of about 12.
That is what I've just said. It's not accurate.
It's not accurate.
These are members under the chamber whose concession have been assigned.
But
Evans,
so
that is the point.
Evans.
Yes, Mr. Japan Mensah.
I guess the appropriate question, I'm not saying your question is inappropriate, but maybe the most accurate way you can put it is whether only the 12 mining leases constitute membership of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. Because if it is not only the 12, but there are 20 or 40 or 50, and the figure that we are talking about relates to the 50, then it cannot be the case that government is misreporting on a figure that it is using for its calculation based on 12.
So let me even make your work easier. The 1 billion figure actually represents proceeds from around 9 of the companies. So there is even more that are not on the chamber. That's what we want the Ministry of Finance to give us the accurate number, because that number should exceed the 1 billion. Do you get the point? So,
but then, are you suggesting that the figures from the Chamber of Mines will be different from what it is that the government of Ghana will have?
Absolutely.
How so?
Absolutely, because it's not all the gold producers members that are part of the chamber. So the Ministry of Finance have more numbers than what the chamber will produce.
Okay, but the mining leases in question relate to the 12 members that you say are all members of the chamber.
So we are missing the issues here. We're talking about revenues that have been reported and assigned. And all the gold royalties that are reported by the chamber are part of those that have been assigned to Ejapa. So what it means is that the 1 billion is in that pot.
Yeah. So the 1 billion. Hello, you're there, Ben?
Yeah, I'm here.
No,
yeah,
Ben.
Yeah.
Ben, you're making a point.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the Ministry of Finance should have a figure that is bigger than what we are being presented with.
But Ben,
for the 1 billion.
I guess that
and that is what we want clarity on their reconciled numbers.
It will be fair to the ministry.
Just a second, Mensah. Ben, yes.
Yes, so I think the point is made that the Ministry of Finance should have numbers that would exceed what the chamber has actually given us.
Because your point, just to clarify, because your point is the government, not everything that has been reported by the chamber is just from their members, but the government has, of course, they take royalties from every mineral producing company in Ghana, correct?
Absolutely.
So you expect the amount to be far more than what the chamber is reporting.
Even if you assume that those are the members that are coming from the chamber. You remember on your show, the minister gave us a figure around 650 million Ghana. That is significantly lower than what the chamber has given us from the members that are part of those that have been assigned to Ejapa.
I mean, Mr. Mensah, isn't it the questions that have been asked by then? You make the point about this is a very serious subject, right? Isn't it in the interest of government to simply publish each mineral firm and how much they produce over the period, the royalties that you got from the period, which then became the basis of the valuation, so that we can all interrogate it. But you do not have that.
Evans, assuming we work with even the proposition from Ben and his team, he admits that all the mining leases that are being assigned are indeed members of the chamber. And so whatever valuation that government has put on those royalties that are being assigned are figures that are known. Assuming that for purposes of this conversation, there are only 12 members of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, which indeed is not the case. And the figure that the Mines Chamber has reported relates to revenues from all their members. Okay? So I'm saying that if you're saying that figure is lower than what you expect the Ministry of Finance to be having, the Ministry of Finance is not dealing with respect to this transaction on all mineral royalties that accrue to the state. It is dealing specific to a certain number, which has been disclosed in the documentation that I have to be 12 and some 4 under prospection. So to suggest that government is misreporting, when I expect the civil society organizations to be in a position to give us the actual figures, as opposed to suggesting that you expect the ministry to be providing you with the figures, and that to the extent that they haven't provided you with the figures, assuming that was even the case, that would amount to misreporting. As far as I'm concerned, it's unfair, grossly.
I mean, Ben, there's a reason.
No, I think if he has the numbers, he can just give us the numbers. But we need
I don't have the numbers.
So if he has the numbers before me, so you can give us the numbers.
I'm saying
so we can close that chapter.
No, but Mr. Mensah, the point, the question about the valuation is such a critical point, right? I mean,
no, I agree.
No, I mean, so it comes back to the question about. Even for yourself, do you know the actual hard cold facts that led to the valuation and what these facts are in terms of how much exactly we're using to do the
You can disagree with the ministry,
yes,
or not. But the ministry is saying that, look, the information that we use for the valuation is required of us to provide to a certain regulatory authority for approval. And so, yes, we can show it to you, but we can't make copies available to you.
But I wonder, as a member of parliament representing Second D, you're saying that you're okay not being given that information, and yet you approve the deal, which is, I mean, you're okay with it?
Because I understand the nature of the transaction.
No, but you're not doing this for yourself, remember. You're doing it for your people.
That is the reason why my people elected me to go and represent them. That I'll bring the competencies that
I mean, you don't know the basis for the valuation, yet you approve the deal. I mean, isn't that
that is inaccurate. Because indeed and in fact, if you listen to the presentation from the civil society organizations themselves, the ministry provide them with light in the presentation that they made to them, except that when they requested for copies, those details were not made available to them. That's exactly what happened. Parliament was given the cash flow based on which the valuation had been done. And we were told when we requested for copies of the prospectus that in the nature of the transaction that government was undertaking, because of the potential for some information that could potentially come out, it was immature at the point of the conversation for us to be furnished with those details. How does that not make sense?
I mean, Ben, quickly, there's a reason why this became a big issue for you today. Why is it important that we get these royalty numbers correct? I mean, why is it important for this deal and for Ghanaians?
I think 2019 numbers are the most significant numbers if you really want to do forward projection, because that gives you a true sense of how much we're getting in recent period. So there is no way the Ministry of Finance wouldn't know the true picture of what Ghana got from those mines that have been assigned. When we met, and Mr. Mensah was not there in the room, and we are speaking because, the rules around that conversation has already been breached, even though we agreed to do it on Chatham House rules. The ministry quoted names in their statement. But more substantively, we were presented with $72 million for half year 2019. And our position was that the ministry should be in a position to give us a full year number for 2019. And we were not presented with that number. And they in fact agreed that they were going to send us those numbers. But when they sent the slide, the 72 has been taken out. But that is important for us to understand what the ministry is thinking and what is feeding into the valuation of our royalty stream. Because we think that the $200 million we realized in 2019 could even hit $300 million for 2020. So those numbers are very important for us to do analysis of what the valuation of our royalties should actually be. And that's why we're interested in getting the actual numbers from the ministry. We even requested for 2020 expectations from the ministry, because we are 9 months gone, and mineral royalties are actually gotten every quarter. So you should have a full sense, a proper sense of what you are expecting in 2020. And we requested for those numbers as well, which will not be provided.
So clearly going forward, the conversation around consultations is still pretty relevant. And I'm surprised, Ben, that after that marathon session today, you still had questions. Was it that you posed a question and they were not answered in the meeting? Well, what happened there?
I think we got unsatisfactory answers, to be honest. And also, even though the ministry agrees to do consultation, the meat of the whole thing is that they will consult but not change course. And we don't think
is it consultations or rather explanations? The terminology is important here.
That would be probably a better way to describe it, even though they say consultation. Because the position is that they would engage but not change course. And we think that is not in good faith. If you want to engage, then you should be in the position to welcome perspective and also, most importantly, answer the question about how you value the assets and what other options were available before the ministry decided to actually go to the stock market.
Ben, I'm grateful that you joined me. And Mr. Evans Mensah, who is NP for Secondary, grateful that you also joined me also. This keeps, of course, coming back. The controversial Ijapa royalties deal tonight, allegations of government massaging figures are used to value the entire deal at $1 billion. Of course, you've heard the rebuttal there from Evans Mensah. Isn't it amazing when your network cares about you so much that they do amazing things for you? You guessed it. I'm talking about the Vodafone Cash dropping all charges when you send money to all networks. Yes, you heard it. It costs nothing, absolutely nothing, when you send money via Vodafone Cash to all networks. Just send any amount as many times as you want to any network and pay zero charges on the money sent. So go ahead, make payments, show your love, make contributions, send money, all you want via Vodafone Cash to all networks for free. Just dial *110 hash and send cash for free. Ready.